management company in Aurora, Colorado, of the apartment complexes that were taken over by Trende Aragua, they have finally made some official statements. Let's get into it. Here we go. The management company in Aurora, Colorado, of the apartment complexes taken over by Trende Aragua, the violent Venezuelan prison gang. They've officially come forward and they're giving their perspective of what happened with all those apartment complexes. Let's get into it. Here we go.
See if you can find that story on the Venezuelan gangs taking over the apartment building in Colorado.
We have new information on what we've learned is happening inside an apartment complex. This video shows armed men walking through a building, knocking on doors, then entering an apartment. The apartment complex is at 12th and Dallas and Aurora.
In doing so, have taken over several apartment complexes.
Venezuelan gangs are taking over the real estate. They're becoming real estate developers. And they have...
Do they get little cards?
Their little card is a bullet.
Yes!
Kamala Harris will work to deliver on that and secure the border.
Who's to blame? Carousel, if you will, continues. The city says the property management team is simply not doing enough to help these residents. In an interview with that property management team last week, they say that that building is actually being controlled by a certain gang, and they feel helpless. There's nothing they can do about it.
They've, in fact, have kind of pushed out the property management through intimidation and then collected the rents. And arrests have been made, but these operations are still ongoing.
Still ongoing. And you know what? Why wouldn't they be? Why would Trende Aragua just give up? If they've got a good thing going, why would they just give up? They wouldn't. That's not what gangs do. And yet the whole narrative is, it's just 3 buildings. It's just 3 buildings, just 3 small buildings. Property manager accuses Venezuelan gang of taking control of Aurora apartments, attempting extortion. We've heard little bits and pieces. And what we're doing today is we are kind of going through property management's perspective of, hey, what's the dealio there? Because we've heard lots and lots of conflicting information. And so much of it has to do with mainstream media's cover-up of the issue. The J.D. Vance vice presidential debate with ABC basically saying, J.D. Vance, we're going to fact check you. It was just 3 small, tiny little complexes. And J.D. Vance says, listen to what you're saying. You're saying that a violent Venezuelan prison gang has taken over property in the United States and the U.S. government isn't really doing anything, right? Brooklyn-based property management company blames the city for not doing more when the Trende Aragua gang seized several apartment buildings. Make sure you guys can read it. So it's broken its silence. New York-based property management its company has broken its silence on reports that a Venezuelan gang known for violent and illegal activities took control of several apartment buildings and it manages in Aurora, Colorado. Company said gang members seized control of some units, allegedly assaulted one of their employees, and tried to extort the company. That is the kind of overall picture of what you've got going on here. The landlord, CBZ Management, that's who we saw the clips put together on social media, said in a series of posts on social media on October 11th that law enforcement told them the notorious Trende Aragua gang from Venezuela was behind the takeover, which the company said left their tenants and employees in a precarious situation, fearing for their safety. Imagine you are a property manager. You got to work one day and you find that vacant unit that your cleanup guys, that your painting guys are putting back together during tenant changeover, somebody's living in there and they claim they've already paid the month's rent. Like, no, we're looking at moving somebody in next week. And you're already in here. We don't know who you are. We don't know what in the F is going on. And what would have happened is Trende Aragua has members already living in the complex. They see a unit that it's vacant. It's in that flux state of being put back together. So the next tenant can move into a nice fresh unit. And they go ahead and they take somebody that they know from the community that needs housing. And hey, we'll give you a deal on this unit. No first, last deposit, none of that stuff. You just pay us monthly. And they're not the owner. They are a gang that has taken over. Property management firm said the trouble began in late 2023 after they made significant investments to upgrade several apartment complexes in Aurora. Everything was progressing smoothly. Property values were rising, vacancy rates were dropping. It was a win-win for both the owners and the city of Aurora, CBZ Management said in one of the posts. Then the gangs arrived. CBZ Management detailed how they first noticed a rise in crime and tenant complaints, with an influx of unauthorized occupants infiltrating the buildings. That's the story I just told you. Hey, we haven't leased out this unit. There's somebody living there. What's the deal? Well, Trende Aragua's leased it out from underneath you. Now you got to battle to get your own unit back so that you can put in the people that you've already promised it to. In one instance, a tenant returned from vacation to find strangers living in his apartment. What's up with this? Who are you? What's going on? Who changed the locks? When confronted, many of the illegal tenants claimed that they already paid rent, just not to CBZ, the management company, but to a different entity, the gangs. The gangs. To address this entity, we contacted every city official we could think of to help with the problem, the company said in one of the posts. Unfortunately, none were willing to take meaningful action. Yeah, you want us to do something about Trende Aragua? Oof, those guys got guns. I don't think so. Yeah, the mayor says one thing, this other guy says another thing, city council person says something. We're just going to wait to see how it plays out. I mean, that's what it kind of felt like looking in from the outside of exactly what was going on in Aurora, Colorado. CBZ Management said that it spoke to Aurora police, the FBI, Homeland Security, who reportedly said the gang was part of the Trende Aragua criminal organization, which was also causing problems in other parts of the country. Okay, so good to know, right? That's some good information. That's some solid information there, boys. What are you going to do about it? And that's where the management company, I think, has had, this notion of, hey, we've let everybody know what's going on. Their lender, the lender of this building, has let everybody know what's going on. But the bottom line is, what are you going to do with a violent, Venezuelan prison gang that's already in your project? Well, you're going to have to go to war with them. And is Aurora willing to do that with the spotlight on them the way that they are right now? With, this being part of the narrative going on, which is you allow 7 million, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million people into the country illegally. They get set up. And then you've got instances like this where we've been told everything's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. I mean, they're just coming to the United States to get some opportunity and really try and better themselves for a new life. The problem is when you admit that many people into the country, just based on math alone, you're going to have some bad apples. And that's what Trump was always talking about. And that's why he was called racist, because he called them out and said, hey, you've got some really bad folks coming into the country. These are some of those bad folks. And mainstream media wants to basically just, they're all great. It's all fine. They're all just families trying to get ahead, trying to get their little bit of the American dream. Well, we know that Trende Aragua is in not only Aurora, Colorado, they're heavily in New York City. They're in Denver. They're in Chicago. They're in Utah. They're in Idaho. They're in Portland. They're in Seattle. You just know they are. Anywhere you've got a sanctuary city and any kind of Venezuelan population, you're going to have some faction of Trende Aragua. 2 days after our FBI meeting, the gang confronted our on-site manager, asserting control over all 3 properties. This is the management company. They offered an ultimatum: share rental income 50-50 or lose the buildings permanently. They also threatened to harm him and his family, the property manager. The company's local representative in Aurora was attacked after refusing a bribe from unauthorized occupants inside a vacant unit, according to a separate post by CBZ Management on Twitter, with security footage of part of the assault, which left the representative beaten bloody. And meanwhile, law enforcement is just basically doing the bare minimum or nothing because they don't really want to address. They don't either have the authority to address what's going on, or they don't want to make a big stink about it, or because the elected officials in charge are like, yeah, this isn't a good look for Aurora. And they've just been trying to downplay exactly what's going on. And, politically, that's what you do. There's no issues here. I mean, it's just 3 apartment complexes taken over by a violent prison gang from Venezuela. Following the attack, the employee was hospitalized and later allegedly received threatening messages, some of which contained details about his family. That's special. That's special. Got to run these people out. But we're not in a running out type atmosphere right now. Politically, we're right before the election. So this is all going to get downplayed. It's all going to get downplayed because ask yourself the question, if you allow 10 million people into the country, 15 million people, 20 million into the country, why would you stop now? We're 3.5 years, we're 3 3/4 years in on 94 executive actions, which have basically just obliterated the southern border. And why all of a sudden would we say, oh, you got to go after Trende Aragua? I mean, we let them in. We need to take responsibility. We're just not doing that. Local law enforcement's probably doing whatever they can, but you can't make a huge stink over this because the eyes of the world are on this situation right now. And to come right out and say, yeah, we lost complete control is just an admission that, hey, maybe, just maybe, letting 7 million, 10 million, 15 million people into the country unabated without being vetted, maybe that was a poor call. And maybe we shouldn't be doing that moving forward, which everybody knows is the case, but the damage has already been done. For the safety of our management team and their families, we withdrew them from the properties and focused on seeking help from government agencies. So that is that time period where the politicians are basically stating, yeah, the management company abandoned the project. They just abandoned it. They're total mismanagement of this project. Just complete mismanagement. They just left these units, in disarray. Some of them were wrecked out. Some of them needed, updating. Some of them needed repairs. Management company just bailed. Well, that's not exactly what we're saying here, right? Saying for the safety of our management team, one of our dudes was already beaten up, threatened, extorted. Okay, so do you want to take on a Venezuelan prison gang by yourself? I don't think so. Neither did the management company. So they're waiting for some help from local authorities, from whomever they can get, FBI, Homeland Security, whomever. But nobody wants to step in and go, all right, we're dropping the hammer on this, because then that message gets out. Oh, this is a real problem. This is a real issue. CBZ Management said it expected a swift response from the city, including resources and police protection, possibly even National Guard assistance, to help regain control of their properties. The Aurora Police Department confirmed in late August that the task force had been established to address criminal activity connected to Trende Aragua and other gangs operating in the area, working in collaboration with DEA and other federal authorities. CBZ Management said it wasn't enough and accused the city of drumming up code violations to shift the blame and shut down the properties. Now, that's when I started kind of coming in on this story. Code violations. And then they cleared out the project in 6 days. Code violations. You got shenanigans going on here. There are shenanigans. And the more I read this story, the more I believe the property manager. This has just been one flim-flam deal after another. And so much of it has to do with, we need to keep this quiet. Don't tell anybody this is going on, because this doesn't look good. Meanwhile, you've got busts happening in San Antonio. You've got arrests happening in Houston. You've got middle school students being recruited in Houston for Trende Aragua. They go there. The member of Trende Aragua got arrested because he was going to middle schools and trying to get kids to become part of a shoplifting ring. That's special. That's special. We were left helpless, the management company says, watching as violence, bullets, and destruction overtook our buildings. Many of our legitimate tenants fled out of fear, the company said in another post. Yeah, you would too. If you got gangbangers on the other side of the wall, they're running around with guns. They're chasing people through the apartment complex. They're beating up property managers. Hasta la vista, right? I mean, that's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to be tempted to do. Despite clear evidence, many still deny the reality of the situation, sometimes using us as scapegoats. That is the situation, I believe. Property manager, the owner, the management company and property manager, same thing. So that's why we are no longer staying silent. We will continue to counter falsehoods with simple facts and evidence. Yes, gangs did take control of our apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, and the government did nothing. That is the real story. And I believe them. You start looking at how many notices they had done to local officials, to governmental officials. Hey, this is going on. We need some help. Hey, this is going on. We need some help. And they were basically met with, well, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, it's only 3 buildings, literally to national media. JD, I'm going to stop you right there. This is a very small, contained area this has happened in. If you take away one thing from this podcast, it is this. If Trende Aragua has taken over 3 apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, and there are many, many communities throughout the United States, sanctuary cities, that have taken in thousands and thousands of Venezuelans, you're going to have Trende Aragua in those communities as well. Because Trende Aragua, a lot of what they do is they sling some dope, and they sling people, mainly women and children. Sex trafficking, that's what they do. That's their bread and butter. And so when they are in communities with Venezuelans or any other, member of any other country from South America, Central America, wherever that's looking to get out of their hellhole of a country, they come to the United States, they're fair game. They are a target for these gangs because the cartel brings them in, sticks them with a big bill. Hey, you owe us this amount of money. Now, I don't care how you get it. Just go out and get it. And the gangs know this. And so they go ahead and the young ladies, they work it off on their back. Hardcore. Children, you betcha. 10, 11, 12-year-old girls, you betcha. And they'll put them up in these apartment complexes. They'll take over these rooms. They'll put a mattress in there and hey, you can work it off. Hardcore. I mean, brutal. But that is the reality when you allow millions of people into the country unvetted. This is what you get. This is the story that results from that stuff. Epoch Times reached out to the city of Aurora with a request for comment on the allegation. The officials failed to make meaningful action. In response, a spokesperson said that the city is not going to give credence to these continued exaggerations. Well, what's the exaggerations? Well, the exaggerations they are saying are these delinquent property owners, managers, and or investors conveniently fail to acknowledge that their own bank lenders took them to court in the last few weeks where a judge ordered some of their problematic properties into receivership. They haven't paid. This is what happens. And they don't want these properties. They don't have control. And if the cops aren't helping them, if local authorities aren't helping them, if, Department of Homeland Security isn't helping them, why would you continue making payments? Oh, yeah, I'm a good individual. Let's just keep this bad boy current. If you've lost control physically, financially, kiss it goodbye. Why would you keep control of these properties? That means a judge has given the legal authority to a third-party receiver to actually manage the properties, and who the property's owner will be forced to compensate. Well, good luck getting that rent money, right? Good luck getting that rent. Because it's all in play. Because as you heard, hey, this story isn't over. It's not over. You've still got Trende Aragua in there doing their thing. Epoch Times reached out to CBZ Management for the request for comment. Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman acknowledged the presence of criminal activity in certain apartment complexes, but said the issue did not represent a widespread crisis in the city. Nah, they just took over 3 buildings, and now we've got them taking over other buildings in other cities across the United States. And that's what happens when you allow this kind of thing to happen. This is it. I mean, there's no arguing. You could say, oh, that's not happening. Kind of like what was it, ABC said? Oh, that's not happening. That's not happening. It's really contained. Is it? What about all these stories that we're hearing? Other cities, other parts of the country, other sanctuary cities, they're getting whacked as well too. You've got this infiltration going on. And why wouldn't this happen? I mean, there's nobody to really push back, and current administration doesn't want to push back, because then you'd have to admit to the fact that, oh, maybe that whole southern border policy lasted, 4 years. Maybe that's got something to do with this. Hard to say. Who knows? The reality is that the concerns about Venezuelan gang activity have been grossly exaggerated. Which parts? What parts have been grossly exaggerated? I want to know. Kaufman wrote in an October 8th statement, the incidents were limited to several apartment complexes in this city of more than 400,000 residents. So what you try and do is you dilute the issue. Big city crime. It's okay. No, it's not okay. It's not okay. Tell the families back in Venezuela, and their 11-year-old daughter came here, and they're just getting railroaded, nightly, and that's how they're paying off their debt to come into the land of opportunity. Yeah, how's that one going down? Rough, right? I mean, that's just tough. But no, it's okay. It's just a few complexes, and if it's a few complexes, my point is, it's way more. And we're going to be reading about these stories. You just are. Mainstream media, they will be like, oh, that's not a good story. That doesn't help our cause. We're never going to get her elected if that kind of thing keeps popping up. Good Lord. Let's keep a cap on that. Let's blame it. Big city crime, city of 400,000. Yeah, it's just a couple of apartment complexes. That is literally the story that's out there. So Kaufman's remarks preceded a high-profile visit to the city from Trump, who referenced the situation during a rally in Aurora, describing the situation as a war zone overrun by criminal elements. Well, if what the management company is describing is true, which I have no reason not to believe, then that's what you are describing. You're describing a Venezuelan prison gang war zone overrun by prison gang. During the visit, Trump announced plans for a new initiative dubbed Operation Aurora to crack down on illegal immigrant gangs. Oh man, the mayor of Aurora, officials in Aurora must be going, oh no, good Lord, I hope he doesn't get elected. Will Trump actually do an Operation Aurora? I think it'll be some version of that. I don't think he'll call it Aurora, because some city official from Aurora will say, hey, Mr. Trump, we were not exactly a sanctuary city, and we would love it if you kept our name out of it. Because all these cities, they're just trying to be the not me. Not me. It's not happening in my town. Not me. It's not happening here. Oh, no. No, it's just a handful of buildings. And the rest of us are going, yeah, I don't believe you. And those are the stories we're reading. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.